My name is Chris Donovan. I'm a documentary photographer from Toronto, Canada, and I'm going to share my ongoing project, Those Who Stay Will Be Champions, which documents the culture of basketball excellence in Flint, Michigan. I first visited Flint at the beginning of 2016 at the height of the news around the ongoing water crisis. When I first arrived in Flint, I took a lot of pictures that looked like this. Stereotypical images of a water crisis that didn't add much to the conversation about what's really going on in a city like Flint. I fell in love with the city and returned every few months. About a year into working in Flint, people began calling the crisis the quote water thing. Some friends in Flint explained to me that the water crisis had become just another thing. It was another thing in the same way that the police violence was a thing, or the outmigration, the defunding of the school system, and the collapse of the auto industry were all things that citizens of Flint had to overcome daily. As I grew to love Flint more and more, I realized that the doom and gloom media depictions of this place did not match the realities of the place I'd come to know and love. I decided it was time to focus my lens on something positive. I started reading the Flint Journal, the local newspaper, religiously. I read a short article about the merging of the last two high school athletic programs. There was a line in there about how this would be the first time in 90 years that a team would wear the name Flint on their jersey instead of Southwestern, Northern, Central, and Northwestern. I thought this was beautifully symbolic of the way the city had come together amidst the water crisis, and decided to document the first season of the new Flint Jaguars football team. I photographed that first football season, and the work was published in the New York Times Lens blog. Not long after, I attended a portfolio review with Rhea Combs, curator of the Smithsonian African American Museum, who pointed out an image, which was shared earlier in the slideshow, that to her referenced popular prison imagery. I then began to do more research to learn about some of the subconscious biases in media representations of Black people, and realized I may have made some subconscious mistakes myself. This hammered home for me how important it is to spend a lot of time in the community to learn to challenge these biases within myself. I returned later that year and decided to focus on the Jaguars basketball team. Basketball is such an integral part of the culture in Flint that citizens named themselves after basketball players. People from Flint refer to themselves as Flintstones, which is not because of a cartoon, but rather because of the Michigan State Spartans basketball team in the year 2000. 3 of the starters on the team were from Flint, and they called themselves the Flintstones. The team went on to win a national championship, and the city then adopted the moniker. One day while traveling with the basketball team, the team bus got stuck behind an accident on the highway. We were stuck on the bus for several hours as the multi-car pileup ahead of us was cleared. I remember going up to the coach at the time, former NBA player and Flint native Corey Hightower, and asking why we could not simply walk to the school, which was only a 10-minute walk away where the kids' parents were waiting to pick them up. I'll never forget the look he gave me as he replied, "There are a ton of cops out there, and you want me to start walking toward them with 30 Black kids? I'm going to end up with dead kids." This, among other experiences in Flint, made me realize the importance of questioning my own privilege and taking great care when telling a story from a community which faces challenges that I simply don't have to face as a white Canadian. Flint is not a place, however, that needs to be saved or pitied. It's a place that needs respect. If the people of Flint were respected by their government, the man-made water crisis never would have happened. It is therefore important to me to portray Flint as a city that is like any other, that runs the full gamut of human emotion from joy to love to sorrow. When photographing in Flint, I'm photographing a basketball team, but it's also a lot more than that. At its core, I'm photographing boys who are learning who they are and watching them turn into men in front of my eyes. One of the beautiful things about having photographed this team for more than 4 years is that I've had the privilege of watching these guys grow up. I truly believe that the camera is a passport to experience things that we would never have an excuse to otherwise, and that has certainly been my experience in Flint. I believe that in a place like Flint, it's important to document daily life. In a place that is at best mystified and at worst stigmatized by most outside media depictions, the documentation of mundane daily moments becomes a quasi-visual revolutionary act. We can learn a lot from sports psychology. One of the fundamental pillars of the philosophy is the practice of intentional breathing, calming the body and focusing on the challenge in front of you. The challenge in front of these young men is big both on and off the court. Outmigration and the defunding of the educational system don't only make it difficult to win basketball games, it makes it difficult to overcome systematic barriers to success for young black men in America. The sign that sits above the Flint Jaguars locker room reads, "Those who stay will be champions." This sign issues a challenge to these young men. It asks them to rise to the occasion and take on the challenge in front of them. If you stay, if you put in the work on the court, you will win basketball games. But it's not just that. If you stay in Flint and decide to take on the challenge of bettering your community, you will champion this community. You will be champions. Thank you.